Yo, I'm Yovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and NBA basketball is back. NBA Summer League has officially started. I'm here in San Francisco for the California Classic. Just got back from Chase Center after the Lakers 108-94 loss to the Sacramento Kings, and a lot to get into. I just wanted to do a first impressions of some of the Lakers rookies and two-way guys, seeing guys like Maxwell and Colin Castleton as second-year guys, seeing guys like Dalton, Knecht, and Bronny James making their NBA debuts, and then the debuts of the new two-way guys in Blake Hinson and Armel Traore. So instead of the typical three takeaways, I'm going to be splitting it into a Maxwell takeaway, a Bronny James and Dalton Knecht takeaway, and then the three two-way guys, Castleton, Traore, and Hinson. All right, so before we get into the three takeaways from today's game, I want to quickly touch on some breaking news that just happened as I was editing this video. LeBron James re-signed with the Lakers on a 3-year, $101.355 million deal. And that is notable because he is taking a nearly $2.7 million pay cut, which brings the Lakers under the second apron and gives them a bit of wiggle room where if they can salary dump a couple of minimum players, they open up the possibility to sign a player to the taxpayer mid-level exception. And as I've previously said on here, a couple of names I've heard that they would be interested in are Gary Trent Jr. and Spencer Dinwiddie. And we'll see in terms of the market for Gary Trent Jr., maybe some team is willing to use some of their non-taxpayer mid-level exception on him, although the suitors are running out at this point. And then I think taxpayer MLE is more than fair value for a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie, who, especially in the playoffs, really struggled for the Lakers, but overall had some solid moments as a glue guy. Those are a couple names that could be there. Maybe they spend that on another big man, though I think that would only be the case if they are dumping a Christian Wood or a Jackson Hayes in a potential trade. As I've also said before on here, I've heard Christian Wood and Cam Reddish would be the two most likely guys to be salary dumped. Now, maybe a team pushes to get Jackson Hayes, and when it comes down to it, the Lakers decide that there isn't much of a difference between Hayes and Wood. But my understanding is the Lakers would prioritize keeping Hayes in comparison with Wood and Reddish. But regardless of what the Lakers decide to do, whether it is salary dumping someone or standing pat for the time being, this was quite the gesture from LeBron James, who put his money where his mouth was. And The Athletic, as well as other outlets, had reported earlier in the offseason that he was considering taking a pay cut for a James Harden or a Klay Thompson or a Jonas Valanciunas or a DeMar DeRozan if the Lakers could land one of those types of guys on a non-taxpayer mid-level exception contract. And really, only Jonas Valanciunas was available in that price range. He ended up signing a 3-year, $30 million deal with Washington. After that, LeBron could have decided to ask for all the money and not taken a pay cut and said, hey, this is on you guys for not figuring this out. This is for you guys for not managing the salary sheet. And it's not my problem that you guys weren't able to get us under the second apron, that you gave out these player options to a Cam Reddish, to a Christian Wood, to a Jackson Hayes when those guys didn't have a market. And the reason they're on this roster now is because you gave them that player option and they opted in. LeBron decided to take the pay cut, and some people are going to scoff at it and look at, hey, he's worth over $1 billion. This is over a $100 million deal, but $2.7 million is $2.7 million, no matter how much money you have, no matter what your net worth is. So I think this is an admirable gesture for LeBron that shows that he is serious about winning. He's serious about being a Laker and helping the Lakers navigate the second apron. And ideally, it starts with a salary dump, where you attach a second-round pick to one or two players and get them off the roster. Then you could sign someone to that taxpayer mid-level exception, and then you could also do a separate deal where you trade, a couple of mid-sized salaries and maybe a JHS or maybe a minimum player attach a first round pick, and then get some sort of upgrade to the starting lineup. And if the Lakers do those three moves, they trim some of the fat at the back end of the roster, they add a rotation caliber player with the taxpayer mid-level exception, and then they go out and make a trade with one of their first round picks to upgrade one of the starting spots. And I think the Lakers are in a much better position. For those who tuned into my live stream, I said I currently think that they are the fifth best team in the West right now. I think there's a clear top four with OKC, Denver, Dallas, and Minnesota in some order. There's going to be several teams in contention for number 5, the Lakers, the Pelicans, the Clippers, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, like the Warriors, the Kings. There's a lot of teams that can make that claim for the number 5 spot. In my opinion, it's the Lakers. And if they can do those moves, I think it firmly puts them in that number 5 spot and potentially even pushes them up into number 4 or even number 3, depending on which players they add with the taxpayer MLE and which player they acquire in a trade. Like, for example, acquiring a Jeremy Grant is different than acquiring a Dorian Finney-Smith. So I think acquiring a Jeremy Grant really raises their ceiling. So we'll see what the Lakers do over the coming days, over the coming weeks, over the coming months. This could be a situation that potentially drags out. It could be a situation where they go quickly, but this was a gesture from LeBron that keeps LA under the second apron, keeps a measure of flexibility, and allows them to improve this roster in the coming days and weeks, potentially, if they can find the right deal to use one of their picks. And again, also find the right deal to dump a couple of these vet minimum guys and then add a player for the taxpayer MLE. But with all that said, let's get into the takeaways from the game. Takeaway number 1 for me was Maxwell Lewis impressed with a series of dazzling finishes and the confidence that he played with, the assertiveness that he played with. He looked like a second-year player playing with rookies and guys fighting to make the NBA, and that's exactly what you want to see out of a Maxwell Lewis. That's exactly what we saw out of Max Christie last year, as he looked more comfortable with the ball in his hands and attacking closeouts and running pick and rolls and just being that primary ball handler. And of course, that's not necessarily going to translate to the NBA level, especially when the Lakers have LeBron James, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Gabe Vincent, Anthony Davis, all these guys that are going to be handling the ball ahead of Maxwell Lewis. Not to say nothing of Max Christie or Jalen Hood-Schifino, whoever is ultimately in the Lakers rotation. But I was just really impressed with his ability to get downhill and contort his body and finish at the rim. He opened the game with a double pump dunk and then had several remarkable finishes around the rim, finishing with both hands, and just played with a pop and a verve that shows you why the Lakers were high on him and why they took him with the number 40 pick in the 2023 NBA draft. So one theme within this video and my impressions and my takeaways is I don't want to overreact in either direction. I think, it's one game. It was against the Kings B team. It's the California Classic. It's not Las Vegas. And it's just one data point, one reference point, one anecdote to analyze and to learn from. And the stats don't necessarily matter, but it's more just looking at the actual process of how are guys playing and what are some of the skill sets that they're flashing and how could they fit into the actual team. And for me, it was Lewis's ability to get downhill and finish. His handle looked tighter. He looked more confident with the ball in his hands. He even had some playmaking. I'm looking here at his numbers, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist only, but did have a couple of hockey assists, 6 for 13 from the floor, 0 for 2 on threes, so it was 6 for 11 on 2-pointers. And I just thought he looked like a second-year player out there, which is all you could ask for. And it doesn't mean that he's going to be a rotation guy. It doesn't mean that he's going to keep this up. He still has a long way to go to crack the rotation and to work his way up in the depth chart. But I thought for an initial game, he really stood out. He scored the Lakers' first 6 points, had 10 points in the first half, finished with 14. Again, a long journey until the regular season and where he ultimately ends up. I think for him, the keys are going to be shot selection and defensive awareness. I still think he can improve in that regard. But again, an impressive summer league debut. and he's going to be a player to watch the rest of the way in terms of how he continues to develop, how consistent he is in this role, and the different facets of his game we continue to see over the next couple of weeks. Takeaway number 2 is Bronny James and Dalton Knecht are works in progress, and that's okay because they are rookies. And I think they both flashed a high level of basketball IQ. I think they both were largely playing within their skill sets, were both largely playing team basketball and trying to fit in and trying to pick their spots. We'll start with Bronny because, of course, he is the draw. He is, the crowd before the game, the crowd during the game. Anytime he touched the ball, the crowd was buzzing. And he talked about it after the game that he wasn't sure what to expect in terms of the crowd and the crowd reaction, and that he was pleasantly surprised by the turnout and by how many Laker fans were there and how many people were cheering for him and supporting him. So he's like, we saw it from game one. He's going to have a level of scrutiny and attention on him at all times, that it's not just on social media. It's not just going to be on the talk shows and the podcasts. It's actually going to be in games, and just all eyes were on Bronny anytime he had the ball. So he largely functioned as an off-ball, weak side shot creator, weak side threat. He was not handling the ball a lot. The Lakers are clearly going to use him as more of a shooting guard than a point guard. The ball was run a lot more through Sean East and Dalton Knecht, and then eventually Tommy Kuhse when he was on the floor. And Tommy Kuhse, as an aside, had an incredible game, 15 points, 8 assists. To me, there was shades of TJ McConnell, and I don't like to just compare him to another white guy, but that's what I saw out there with just his craftiness around the basket. He had reverse finish. He had a running hook. He hit a couple threes. With the 8 assists, was really just doing a solid job as a floor general, running the offense. Also had a couple steals. So I see shades of TJ McConnell, and I wonder if Tommy Kuhse ends up being a guy who the Lakers potentially try to sign to a 2-way contract or potentially try to bring to the South Bay Lakers. He previously played with Orlando in Summer League, was on the Austin Spurs G League team, and then recently has been playing in Europe. And he played well with Orlando in Summer League, so that's another player to watch. But back to Bronny, he largely operated off the ball, and a lot of it was spot up, catch and shoot, coming off of pin downs. Bronny struggled from the floor. I have it here. He was 2 for 9, 22%, 0 for 2 on threes. Overall stat line was 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. And I thought on the defensive end, he largely held his own. Granted, this was the Kings B team, and he did have a couple of welcome to the NBA moments early on, getting hammered on a screen, getting pushed over / dropped on a drive. So there was a couple of those moments early, but I thought he largely held up defensively. He had that nice steal, which led to a fast break layup for the Lakers. Also had a deflection, and you could see the activity and the energy defensively. And so one thing with the defensive end is he is small. That really stood out in comparison to some of the other guards that he was going up against. So there's going to be a bit of a hurdle for him to overcome. But I thought defensively it was fine. Offensively, I thought settled for mid-range jumpers a lot, and that was something I asked him about after the game. He was talking about trying to get downhill and then create some separation. And when I had asked him at the introductory press conference about what he was trying to work on in Summer League, he said his ability to shot create. And I thought he showed that and got some pretty good looks. And if you look at it, there was a few he short-armed, the legs weren't quite there. This was his first game since mid-March, so it had been almost 4 months since he had played competitive basketball in this sense, in terms of like a game, not putting aside like scrimmaging or anything, training and stuff like that. His stat line was largely in line with his USC numbers, and he did struggle from the floor, though I did think he created some solid looks. I mean, so his first basket, he came off a pin down into a DHO with Colin Castleton, took the ball and took a couple of dribbles toward the rim, saw that the big man was dropping and finished with a scoop layup. And then later, he created some separation with a behind the back dribble and then drilled a 19-foot jumper. So again, I don't think this really swayed my opinion of Bronny in either direction. I think that he's going to spend a lot of the season in the G League. I think that this confirmed that, but I also think we saw some flashes and we saw some things of he did not stick out as a player who did not belong on that floor. He had several hockey assists. He had several swing passes. He was making the right play. You can see the passing offensive instincts from him. And he's just a smart basketball player. So it's going to be a learning curve overall, and he's going to continue to get better and better. And the Summer League coach and South Bay Lakers head coach Dane Johnson said that the plan is for Bronny to play in all of Summer League. There's no conversation about shutting him down. Obviously, health is going to be a factor, and as long as he stays healthy, the plan is for him to play in every game and get as many reps as possible. So he played 22 minutes, and the plan is for the Lakers to continue to figure out what they have in him, to continue to play him and get him some reps, and then go from there. And then as far as Dalton Knecht, he handled the ball more than I expected, although I guess looking at the roster and who the Lakers have in the backcourt, it did make some sense of how much he was operating on the ball. But a lot of pick and rolls, a lot of DHOs, some pin down action, some back cuts. He had a couple of solid finishes at the rim. His shot was all over the place. Like, I mean, it's funny because people were giving Bronny flack, but Dalton Knecht was 3 for 12. So he finished with 12 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 for 4 on threes, and just 5 for 9 at the free throw line. Also worth noting, Bronny was 0 for 2. So Dalton Knecht, there was a bit of rust with the shot, but I thought the shot looked good, and I thought most importantly, he played with a lot of confidence, and there's a lot of confidence with the shot and taking it. You saw the quick release. There was one play where Maxwell Lewis drove from the wing, drew 2 defenders, including Dalton Knecht, kicks the ball back out quickly to Knecht, and he fires up a 3, and he makes it. That was his lone 3-point make, but you saw the vision of, if that is D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves or LeBron James driving and turning and kicking that ball back and passing it to Knecht, he has the quick trigger where he can get that off, and it's a high percentage look. So, did not connect at the level that he wanted, did not connect at the level that the Lakers wanted. But I thought overall, again, if we're looking at process over results, his ball handling, his ability to navigate screens, I thought he showed some playmaking chops again, which I believe he was second on the team in assists. If I'm not mistaken, that is correct. After Kuzi, he was second on the team in assists. So, I just think from the Dalton Knecht perspective, the shot is going to fall. He's too good of a shooter for it to not. And if this slump continues, then we will reassess and view him differently and evaluate him differently. But I think as long as the shot falls at some point, which I expect it will, I think his ability to handle the ball, his ability to play make for others. He had a brilliant pass to Armel Traore on a side pick and roll where Traore got fouled, so it didn't end up being an assist, but he showed some passing skills that I think are going to be valuable, especially if he's primarily going to be a second unit guy, and teams are going to test his defense, and that still is a bit of a question mark. But overall, people are going to look at his shooting numbers, they're going to look at Bronny's shooting numbers, but these guys are rookies, and they're the 17th pick and the 55th pick. They're not necessarily expected to come in and be really, really good from day one. Dalton Knecht is 4th right now in Rookie of the Year odds, which I was a little bit surprised by. It seems a little high based on his potential role with the team, but it is the Lakers, and there's going to be a lot of action on that. And he was a projected top 10 pick, so I'm not shocked by it. I just was slightly surprised because I view him as the 8th or 9th guy on the roster, and that guy rarely wins Rookie of the Year, but who knows? He could continue to ascend and exceed expectations. But for Bronny and for Dalton, clearly there's going to be a learning curve for both guys. They are rookies. This was their first game. And I think both guys deserve some patience. Both guys deserve some grace. And we need to give it a few games, give it a couple weeks before we truly start to judge them and pick apart their games the way that I've already started to see people doing that on Twitter. And finally, I want to talk about the two-way guys. So Colin Castleton had 11 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block. Blake Hinson led the Lakers in scoring with 17 points, including 5 3-pointers. And Hinson did that, mind you, in less than 19 minutes. And then Armel Traore had 6 points and 3 rebounds in 13 minutes. And so I want to start with Castleton because he's the returning second-year guy. And I thought his offensive skill, he hit a 3. He had a nice and 1 finish. He had a nice runner/floater. And you just see the skill with him, with the passing, with the DHO game. If he can start making threes at a league average or so rate, like that is a valuable asset to his offensive arsenal. I thought Colin Castleton looked really solid, looked like a second-year player out there, again, with the double-double and a few assists, and just the Lakers using him as a bit of a playmaking hub around the elbows and around the top of the arc. And it's easy to envision Anthony Davis in that role in LA, running split actions and DHOs and using him as the guy in that position, as JJ Redick laid out and as he wants to. So I thought Colin Castleton looked solid. Blake Hinson, this dude has a flamethrower. He hit 5 threes, quick trigger, would hit a movement 3 coming off a screen, had pick and pop 3s, catch and shoot 3s. Like if he continues to shoot this way and play the way that he did in the first game, he's going to have a chance to get called up and potentially play some minutes in the regular season. And again, this is a situation where you don't want to overreact. It is just one data point, but it was an impressive data point. And his shot was as good as advertised. And that was one guy, like it translated. And the thing with him is going to be just continuing to get into better shape and continuing to get better and more consistent defensively, because teams are going to target him defensively. And he's kind of like a tweener forward where he's like the size of a 3, at least from a height perspective, but he's got more of the frame of like a 4. And coming off the bench in a smaller role, it's less of a concern. But as a undersized stretch 4, you do see the potential as a shooter. Like if you can shoot, you will have a role in the NBA. So could he be like a Doug McDermott type and be this like bigger stretch 4 who's like not great defensively, but can play 12 to 15 minutes, 18 minutes, depending on the night, depending on the context of like the guys you have around him. Like maybe that ultimately becomes the type of guy that he is. But I thought Hinson really impressed with his shooting ability. And he's just a player to monitor, as if he can really break out here in Summer League, I think it does change the calculus of, maybe the Lakers, when they clear a roster spot or two, end up adding him, depending on what the market looks like and who's available and what their options are. So it's just like, this was a really strong debut performance from Blake Hinson. And if he continues this, he has a bright future, most likely with the Lakers, but if not, certainly somewhere else. As I already mentioned, Tommy Kuzi gives me TJ McConnell vibes. I was really impressed with him, and the shooting, the craftiness, the playmaking. He is 26, so I don't we need to temper the expectations. Like he's kind of is who he is at this point, but so far he looked like a potential backup point guard, depending on, again, how he fares against different competitions in different contexts in the bigger stage of Las Vegas Summer League. I thought, he looked really solid. And then Armel Traore, and that's a fun name to say. I thought for him, it was the energy, it was the athleticism, rolling to the basket, offensive rebounds, finishing, drawing fouls. He just played with a certain energy and effort, and he has a certain motor that you can't teach, and that you can see the reason why the Lakers are interested in him. But that will do it for today's reaction show. Appreciate you guys watching and listening. For those on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and drop a comment with one of your takeaways from tonight's game. What did you agree with something I said? Did you disagree? Let me know, and then like this video if you enjoyed it. And for those on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I will be at the game tomorrow, but I will be traveling immediately after. I'm going straight to the airport, so I won't have a reaction video tomorrow night, Sunday night, after the game against the Warriors. So I will be back on Monday with episode 41 of Buha's Block. Be on the lookout for that. I'll talk to you soon.